In this video, we're going to look at the term clause. We're also going to look at some other clause-related terminology. Let's start with the definition of clause. A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb and functions as one part of speech. Let's put up an example. My friend who has autism is brilliant at crosswords. Who has autism is an example of a clause. Let's look at this. Contains a subject and a verb. Well, who is the subject of that clause and has is the verb. Let's look at another example. John gained weight when he stopped running. When he stopped running is a clause. There's our subject and there's our verb. Let's do another. She cannot remember what happened. What happened is an example of a clause. There is our subject and there is our verb. Okay, let's clear that. Let's move on to the second condition. Functions as one part of speech. Let's get rid of those two and just look at the top one. This clause is functioning as an adjective. Let's put up a similar example to prove it. My autistic friend is brilliant at crosswords. Well, this is definitely an adjective. Let's look back up at the clause. The clause describes the noun friend to make it more specific. That is the definition of an adjective. So, the clause is functioning as an adjective. It is an adjective clause. Okay, let's clear that. Let's get our other example back up. John gained weight when he stopped running. Now, this clause is functioning as an adverb. Let's put up a similar example. John gained weight quickly. Well, quickly is definitely an adverb and it modifies the verb gained. Let's look back up at our clause. When he stopped running. That is also an adverb. It modifies gained. So this is an adverbial clause. And finally, let's get back that third example. She cannot remember what happened. Well, this is functioning as a noun. Look at this similar example. She cannot remember Christmas. Well, that is definitely a noun. And you can see how you can substitute one for the other, proving that the clause what happened is functioning as a noun. And that is a noun clause. Let's clear those. Let's look at that adverbial clause again. John gained weight when he stopped running. Well, there's our subject, there's our verb, and we know that this clause is functioning like an adverb, so it's an adverbial clause. But look at this. John gained weight. That also has a subject. That also has a verb. That looks a little bit like a clause. And it is a clause. It's an independent clause. In fact, it's the main clause. Let's put up the definition for an independent clause. An independent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb and can stand alone as a complete sentence. So John gained weight. That could be a complete sentence. And we're going to talk a little bit more about independent clauses. Let's clear this. Look at this example. We will escape when the sun rises. When the sun rises. There's our subject, there's our verb. We are definitely looking at a clause, and it's an adverbial clause. And we have an independent clause. We will escape. There's our subject, there's our verb. This is an independent clause. It's the main clause. It could stand alone as a sentence. But there's something else I want to show you. Look at this word. This is called a subordinating conjunction, and it's the word that joins a subordinate clause, like an adverbial clause, to the main clause. Other examples of subordinated conjunctions are after, although, if, since, until, because, and there are lots more. We have a whole lesson on subordinating conjunctions. Okay, let's clear that. There is something else I want to show you. Look at this similar sentence. When the sun rises, we will escape. This time, our adverbial clause is at the start, and our main clause is after the adverbial clause. And look at this. We now have a comma separating the adverbial clause from the independent clause. And this is a good practice when you have an adverbial clause in front of your independent clause, because it shows where the independent clause starts. Remember, the independent clause is the main clause. There is more on this on the lesson on adverbial clauses. There is one more technical point I want to show you. A boy who went to my school won the lottery. Who went to my school is an adjective clause. Let's put up a similar example. Mr. Carroll, who went to my school, won the lottery. Who went to my school is still an adjective clause. But look, we have commas around this one, but not the top one. And yet both of these are correct. So what's going on? Well, when an adjective clause is required to identify its noun, then there are no commas. But when an adjective clause is just additional information about its noun, then there are commas. So, in the top example, we don't know which boy we're talking about until we read the adjective clause. In the second example, we know exactly who we're talking about before we get to the adjective clause. We're talking about Mr. Carroll. Who went to my school is just additional information. When an adjective clause is just additional information, it is offset with commas. Let's do a little bit of terminology. An adjective clause that identifies its noun is called a restrictive clause. You have to use it. An adjective clause that is just additional information about its noun is called a non-restrictive clause. You do not have to use it. In fact, you could delete it. And to show that, it is offset with commas. Okay. I don't want to end on these technical points. I want to end with a summary of the main points. A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. There's our subject, there's our verb. And functions as one part of speech. Well, this one functions like an adverb, so it's an adverbial clause. Also, don't forget you have an independent clause. That will also have a subject and a verb. And it will work as a standalone sentence. That is everything. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out some of our other lessons on grammarmonster.com.